Hello, everybody. I wanted to make a video. I don't know what I'm gonna talk about yet. I want it to be, as all my videos, I want it to flow freely and to be spontaneous. I'm gonna talk about why I believe there is a God. First of all, you have two options. Number one, this is all an accident. If it is all an accident, then it is somewhat meaningless. After this life, it will just be dark, pitch black, so nothing really matters. So naturally, the best thing to do is squeeze out as much pleasure as you possibly can before you turn into nothing. The other possibility is that this life isn't an accident. This didn't just all happen by accident. There's actually a reason we're alive. There's meaning to this, and this will determine where you go after this life. I mean, if there is nothing afterwards, then it can't have meaning by definition. So on the other side, you have there is an afterlife. I think anyone who is at least a bit sincere will easily see how the latter example is probably what's happening, that this isn't just all an accident and a random occurrence. I don't even know how you could say such a thing, because you have to be deeply unappreciative, and it's almost like self-hate to say everything that you have, the very thing you have, which is your life, is utterly meaningless. Right? I as somebody who strongly believes in God and who tries to live for God every single day of my life, I say that life is a gift. Every single day is a gift. Every single heartbeat is a gift, because I have no idea how any of this happened. I have no idea how I came here. I know nothing. But then to have the arrogance and claim that all of this which I'm experiencing, all of that which I am, is utterly and entirely meaningless is just beyond me. Because if you insinuate, because most people actually believe in a God, whether they know or they don't know, and most atheists believe in a God, but I'll get to that. If you are truly a true atheist, then what you're saying is your own life is meaningless. Everything that you have is meaningless. So you yourself are entirely meaningless, which is self-hate. If nothing you do matters, nothing you experience matters, it's all just an accident and it's gonna be nothing, then what really is there to do other than to, I don't know, try to get as much sex as you possibly can before you get sucked into the void? Isn't that literally what hell is? I mean, I don't know. But the mentality required to actually believe such a thing is that of self-hate, by very definition. Because you're denying everything you are, because everything you are to begin with stems from God. Everything stems from God. That's what I believe, at least. Now you have atheists who say, I don't believe in a God, or you have atheists who say, well, I don't know if there is a God. But I think because the first example I just mentioned about the self-hate, I think that's about 1% of the population. Most people who say, oh, I don't believe in a God, or I don't know if there is a God, they actually believe in a God, or they believe in godly things, such as maybe some things matter, maybe some things have meaning, or maybe some things are right and wrong, right? People always say, yeah, what do you need a book for to know morals? Why do you need the Bible to have morals? It's like, sure, but do you really know everything that is right and that is wrong? Or is it possible that maybe you don't have all encompassing knowledge as a little feeble human being, and the things you think that are right may be bad for you? Because what is pleasureful could appear to be right. You know, the mind can trick us very well. Or the enemy, or the body, whatever you want to call it, because it's always a little bit, spiritual and biblical, because I 100% believe the Bible, because I'm spiritual. It's a spiritual book. and I disagree with religious people. Actually, to sense, agree more with a lot of atheists who are genuinely open, who you could talk to, than closed-minded Christians who will just condemn each other, not act in love, and be like, I'll pray for you because I said Jesus is Lord, now I'm going to heaven. Ah, don't worry, I can do as much sin as I want, I'll masturbate, but I say Jesus is Lord, so I'll go to heaven. Delusion of the devil as well, who's infiltrated the churches. But most atheists actually believe in God, or in some form of God, because to say that something has meaning is to insinuate that at the basis life has meaning. If life has meaning, there has to be somebody to give it meaning. There has to be somebody to construe a plan or make a destiny or whatever so that it can even have meaning. You can't say something in this life matters and at the same time deny that there's a God. It logically doesn't make sense. Because if you truly believe everything will just be black nothingness, then nothing you do matters. It's all gonna end up in the same thing. It has no meaning. Sure, you might do what's the right thing, you might listen to your conscience, another person might be really appreciative of you doing the right thing, but ultimately it's just a matter of time and it's all meaningless anyway. So might as well view it as meaningless right now. That's one thing. Another thing is there is such a thing as right and wrong. It's like, yeah, why do you need a book to have morals? Sure. But then we all know we shouldn't hit somebody. Why do we know that? Okay, we don't need a book. Okay, why do we know we shouldn't hit somebody for no reason? It's all meaningless anyway. What if it's fun for me? Maybe he can go hit somebody else. Then what if it's fun for him then, you know? It's things like that, because obviously, because we have a God-given conscience, right? We have a heart. We all intrinsically, to different degrees, understand what is right and what is wrong. Now, our moral compass can be twisted by the enemy, or by the mind, or by the flesh, or by the body, whatever you want to call it. Which is why I need such a thing as the Bible. And if I'm like, okay, I agree with 95%, maybe I shouldn't have sex with a lot of women, even though I really want to, and I was once like that. I wanted to have as much sex as I possibly could. But then as you start to think deeper, and you do it, you're like, well, it doesn't really get me anywhere. Or you read the Bible and you're like, well, okay, no, that makes sense, okay. You know, maybe I wasn't 100% aligned with the divine spirit within me to tell me what is right and what is wrong. You know, maybe I have some room for error as well. That's why we need a book to tell us what is right and what is wrong. The book should actually just awaken your own conscience. That's the thing. That's what it's about. Because a book, what's a book going to do if you don't have the spirit within? It's the same thing. You have many religious people. They'll read the Bible all day long, but if you don't have the Spirit of God dwelling within you, what are you going to do? You won't have discernment. You won't see things for how they really are. You won't be able to read intentions and read people and see energies. It's all going to be not there, so you will fall for deception. And you'll just be a religious, arrogant, condemning type of religious person. These people, they'll go to hell. They are in hell. They don't feel well. They're in ego. They're running away from faith. They're using such things as, oh, let me just carnally profess Jesus is Lord as an escape to truly work for God and deny themselves. Because it's easier to just say, well, I'm in truth. You know, Jesus is Lord, so I'm good. I'll be saved. Now let me do my thing. That's easy to do. And it's also funny that those very people will condemn Muslims for saying Allah is God, but they themselves could have just been born a Muslim and they would just say Allah is God themselves. They just utter different words, but they're the same people at the end. That's why they both hate each other. That's how you can differentiate them, right? If you have the Holy Spirit, you'll immediately understand what I mean by that. That's why they both hate each other, because they don't have the Spirit of God, right? So there are atheists who would say, I don't believe in a God, but you all believe in a God. Because what is God? Ultimately, everybody has a structure of values or a hierarchy of values, meaning, let's say this. I have a friend and he has a beautiful girlfriend and she wants to sleep with me while I'm in a room alone with her. And my friend is, I don't know, going somewhere to the store or whatever. Now let's say one value or one need is I want pleasure with her. She's beautiful. I feel some type of pull, obviously because I'm a man. But then I have another value, which is I will not go against my friend, right? I treat my friends with respect, or I have a bro code, whatever you want to call it. So I won't do that. So in this situation, you could almost say me being friends with him and having a bro code is the God in that situation, because it is higher than my need for pleasure right there. And everybody has these, consciously or unconsciously. We all have structures of values. And naturally, if you're not thinking deep, if you're living for the world, your highest things are probably going to be money, status, or maybe power, pleasure, obviously pleasure. Most men will sleep with any woman that says yes, so pleasure is all very high. They'll even go against their own conscience and morals. But at the same time, even atheists, you have to just be honest, they also, at the very, very top, there is also the intrinsic moral compass. Meaning, you can have an atheist who doesn't believe in a god, but that doesn't mean he's acting purely Luciferian, or he's living out the archetypal way of living a Luciferian lifestyle. It doesn't mean that by definition, because he can still have his God-given conscience, and he can still listen to it. He can actually be a better person than the guy who utters the words, I believe in a God. What does that mean? In of itself, uttering the words, I believe in a God, is meaningless. It's carnal. To believe in a God is to represent God, to have God at your highest moral, on your highest value structure, to do what's morally right, and to strive for goodness and for God. That is the highest. That's what it means to believe in God. And even those who have that, even they fail. But you can have an atheist who, in a sense, believes more in God than the guy who says he believes in God. Because the guy who says he believes in God, he'll maybe find a wallet with money and an ID, and he could call up the person and give the money back. But he really wants to buy this thing, he really wants to buy a new scooter, or a new car, or a new phone, or whatever. So it's like, forgive me, Lord, I'm just gonna keep it. Or they don't even think about it because they're just religious, they don't concern themselves with these things as much. They just, I'll go to church on Sunday, don't worry. Or you can have an atheist who's like, no, it's the right thing to do, I should give it back, right? And this is actually also something that you have to classify as godly. Your own God-given conscience, your own God-given morals, the voice that's telling you the things you don't always want to hear in the moment. That's what it means to believe in God. So in this moment, the atheist believed more in God than the other guy. And let me tell you, if God is just, he will not judge us by the words we utter. He will judge us by our intentions, and by what we did, how much we fought for him, how much we sacrificed ourselves, right? Not by, which carnal professions did we make, or which man-made cult did we follow, or whatever. This is all meaningless. And I think any atheist will agree with me. If God is real and God is just, he will not judge you based upon which words you said. This won't matter. He will most likely judge you upon which actions you did. But then I also have to say that you have to be humble enough, and God loves the humble. That's why he will open himself up to you when you truly seek him from a humble heart. You have to be humble enough to say, you know what, maybe my little human mind isn't able to comprehend everything that is good and everything that is wrong. I grew up thinking, having sex with a woman, well, what's the problem with it? It feels good. You can have a connection. It's pleasureful. It feels very good. What's wrong with it, right? Or what's wrong with the joint? What's wrong with smoking joints? I'm not hurting anybody. What's wrong with it? But over time, I started to, dig deeper, think, realize where my actions led me to. And at some point, you gotta be, as somebody who seeks, you gotta be like, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe there's more to this than I know, or that it initially appears as. So you start looking. You maybe start reading different things. I don't know, it's different for everybody. But when I read the Bible, I was like, yeah, this is my conscience right there. The things that Jesus taught us, this is my conscience speaking. But he says, oh, you shouldn't fornicate. And it's like, well, I agree we shouldn't steal. I agree with this. I agree, actually deeply agree with the fact we should treat each other in love. And when he said, an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind, you have to love your enemies and forgive your enemies, or this virus of hate will just spread onto everybody. You have to be a spiritual warrior and transmute that negativity into love. That is the only real way of being. I'm like, yeah, that's very deep, actually. That's a very deep and true thing. Because what gain is there in being good to the guy who's good to you? It's easy. But imagine you were good to the guy who hates you and condemns you, laughs at you and mocks you for your stupid little faith. That's also the only way you will ever get somebody to come towards God, by showing God, not by talking about God, not by being logically right, but by being right in truth. Because truth is not spoken, truth is embodied, right? By showing you the love, not telling you about it and then condemning you and saying, I'll pray for you. This is not embodying God. This is just being logically right. But logic is so limited. The mind is so limited. That's why the mind and the spirit is not one. That's why they're two different things. And we ought to live in the spirit, not in the limited mind. Because you can be as intellectual as you want. If there's no spirit that dwells inside of you, you'll never really get wisdom. Everything will be logical deduction and ultimately meaningless, and you will live a nihilistic, depressed life. Because any meaning you attribute to anything ultimately is meaningless, because life in of itself is just going to be black and nothing. Okay, so don't worry, just forget it, But when I read the Bible, I was like, I agree with like 95%. And then it's like, that one thing I don't agree with, maybe he's right, So let me try to do that. And then I try to stop, and it's like, oh, there's a resistance. I have like two things inside of me. One side wants to do this, and the other side wants to do that. And it's like, And then you keep thinking, like, oh, I have two sides inside of me in general, When I observe myself throughout my day, I always have two sides, a good side and the bad side. The bad side thinks about sexual things I shouldn't think about with people I shouldn't sleep with. And the good side is like, no, don't do that. Don't have these thoughts. The good side is like, let me give the money back. But the bad side is like, we could just keep the money. And this is why you don't need religion, or you don't need a book. But in the same time, if it happens to come across, it is good if it does. Because you have it within. You always have two sides. And let me tell you, if you follow the good side, or you humble yourself, you will always recognize that there is a God. I can do much more with a person that says, well, I believe life probably has some type of meaning. I don't believe it's all just an accident. I believe there is a God, but I have big trouble just following a religion and being like, yeah, God, okay, tell me how God is. I mean, what? I can do much more with a person like that than with a person who is, yeah, I know there is a God, but you're doing this wrong, so I'll pray for you, and yeah, you're probably going to hell. They don't get it, it's they're still carnal, they're still early in development, or I can't put my finger on it. They're in ego. It's an ego trap, or you could almost call it a spiritual trap, but it isn't even something spiritual that got them there. It's just carnal. They're just following a cult. That's what it is. And God looks at it the same, because let me tell you, a just God will not judge you based upon which cult you followed or which words you uttered. It's going to be your actions and your intentions. That's what matters. And that's also my point, is if you feed the good side inside of you, eventually you will just come to realization that there is a God. There has to be a God. There has to be meaning. And you also always, it's like but you don't know, but you always know. It's like you always have good and bad. You can always decide what to do. Either you do bad because you're blinded by the enemy and you don't know truth, or blinded by the ego, or by the short-term pleasure because you're in chains, or you do what is right and what is good and you forsake the now for the later. You always have these two sides, and life itself will teach you this. Life itself will teach you where it leads you to if you keep on smoking, where it leads you to if you keep on fornicating, if you keep on living for the now, doing a 9 to 5, then coming home and just watching nonsense and eating junk food. Life itself will teach you where that leads you to. You don't need a book to tell you that. But the same people who say, oh, why do you need a book to have morals, should at least look at their life and look where their actions lead them to. Because these things will lead you to depression. Depression doesn't exist if you have God, if you truly have God. You know why? Because first of all, and again, there I'm going to the value structures. If you have God, life is inherently meaningful. Every single ounce of suffering a godly person goes through has meaning, whereas the nihilistic person is completely meaningless. He's suffering for no reason. He's doomed beyond comprehension because it's going to be nothing, and the little thing he has, he's suffering too, right? But that is actually God's grace, making him suffer, showing him, look, you're going on the wrong path. You are literally going to where you think it's going to be. Actually, maybe even worse, maybe you'll get tortured in hell because you walk there yourself. You choose this, you choose the bad side, so you'll receive the bad side. All the consequences of your bad actions, which just give it enough time, just extrapolate it to the extreme, you have heaven and hell. Because it always drags you deeper. You always gotta smoke more, you always gotta fuck more, you always gotta drink more, you always gotta do more. It never ends. These hellish things of short-term pleasure. And so God gives you depression. By grace, to show you to mend your ways. This is life as a teacher. You don't need a book for that. And if you have God, you can't be depressed because everything has a meaning. Every single thing you go through, every single suffering, every single pain, you know this is going to make me stronger. This is going to make me better. It is meaningful. I am learning something from this. This has to happen because of a reason. It's not just an accident. And your highest thing is God, not short-term pleasure. Camera cut off. What I was saying is that the highest thing will be God. It won't be anything else. Meaning, as a true believer, you put everything subordinate or below God. Meaning, no matter what pleasure, no matter which thing, no matter which temptation, you'll always do what you believe God would do, or what is the most right thing to do. And that is actually the best we can do. That's what it means to believe in God and to strive for that, because you can believe in God, you can read all the books, you will still fall. You will still fall, you will still be a filthy sinner, and you will still do things which your conscience tells you don't do. Because you're a human being, and we need mercy and we need grace. That's why I believe a thing as Jesus Christ makes sense, why he died on the cross for us. Because I think you can try as much as you want. You'll never get it perfectly. You'll never do. Not as long as you're in this realm. But the thing which I'm trying to say is that once you have God on the highest and you truly strive to do what God would do, or what is the highest good you could possibly do, that's when you believe in God. You believe in God when you constantly analyze yourself and introspect and look at what could you have done better. What could have been the best thing you could possibly do, and use all your strength and might to do that, no matter which temptation or which alluring thing coincides or is on the other side, from the bad side, that could give you a little something in the now. And naturally, as you do that, you will also just want to seek a divine connection. You will crave it. You will beg whatever created this for guidance. It's inevitable. It happens as you feed the good side. Because you realize you need help, right? You need strength. You can't do it alone. It's impossible. No one can. Even the most saint of saints, they still fail. You should watch them. You don't see these people the whole day, but you should watch them 24 hours. They have thoughts. They do things. They're not perfect. We all need help of the divine. And this is also something that tells you you're truly a believer in God, of God. You seek him out. You're open to correction. You're open to forsaking the now. You're open to being humbled and humbling yourself in order to grow, in order to maybe change your views, in order to maybe be smaller in the world, but be in a better place eventually. Do you know what I mean by being smaller in the world? We can often appear to be smaller, but when shit gets real, The only people standing will be those who have true value. When everybody bends down to tyranny or to, I don't know, let's say a totalitarian regime, which if you're a follower of God, you know this is happening, they'll all bow down, but you won't. Because what is your highest? It's going to be God. It's going to be to do what is right. And if something compromises your morals, you should stand up even beyond death for it. That's a real follower of God. Somebody who will not compromise what he believes to be right no matter what. That's a real follower of God. That's a man of God. And we ought to strive to be that. We ought to strive to be the type of person that when these things happen, which I'm sure most of you know are starting to happen and are happening more and more in the world and will happen, because it is written it will happen, that you will not bow down to it, that you will stand up for what you believe it is right. And that's how you know you'll set apart. You'll appear small all the time until that moment when shit gets real. You're the one standing. Because what is on your hierarchical value structure? It's not pleasure. It's not doing what is easiest in the moment. It's going to do what you believe is right. And with God on your side and God's might and power on your side, you won't have an issue speaking up against 20 people. Even if they're all condemning you. Even if they all don't understand. Even if they're all thinking, just be quiet, just follow along. Come on, why you gotta be so weird? Just, oh, but it's all compassion, you know. Why you gotta go against it? It's good. We're just all accepting each other and ha ha ha. All this feminine weak nonsense. I'm not even gonna say it. Either you know or you don't know which things I'm talking about. It applies to multiple things. That's how you know. You stand up for what you believe is right and the highest possible good in every given situation. And if you fail, you ask for forgiveness to the divine, whatever you want to call it, and you keep trying. That's a believer of God. He always tries to do what is best. And that is at the utmost of his hierarchical values. It's on top. That's what it really means to follow God. And it's a hard thing to do. And we all fail. But we should strive to be like that if we truly want to follow God. And I think even as an atheist, if you are not sure about which God or what is God or wherever is God, if you still do what you always believe to be right and you strive to do what is right, you will arrive there. Earlier or later, if you humbly look and search, you will arrive there. Because at some point you're gonna ask yourself, why is everybody else doing this when I feel like this is the right thing? Why are we talking to each other like that? And this is also, you could say, partly Holy Spirit. Because not everybody grows up with this. Some people just never really get that introspection and their conscience is just shut off. But I think it's always by choice. I think it's always willful ignorance. But you always have two sides. And what I'm trying to tell you is, even as an atheist, do what you think is the best and pick the good side. Whenever you can recognize the two sides, pick the good sides. And earlier or later you will arrive at God. It's inevitable. That's what I'm saying. It's like a path. It's a metaphorical, invisible, spiritual path. If you choose the good side, you'll arrive at God. If you choose the bad side, you'll arrive at a nihilistic, depressed, meaningless existence. Which sucks. Which gives you depression. Makes you want to take antidepressants to numb yourself so you don't feel as much pain. But you know what the pain is? God's like ringing the alarm bells. Yo, you're about to waste your eternity. Actually, this life isn't all meaningless. Look at how intricately everything is designed. Look at how well your body functions and fits into the world. Like, this isn't just all a joke. You're gonna die. Why don't you, like, become more conscious and aware and actually think about what you're doing instead of repeating the same actions over and over until your body dies and you haven't gotten anywhere? That's depression. That's God speaking to you. That's why these medications are satanic, because they want to shut off God. That's why well, let me not get into that, because people have different opinions. But I truly believe that psychedelics can help. They increase They can increase demonic activity, but they can also help you on the path to self-realization, connecting with the divine. And that's why these meds, they will make it so psychedelics won't work. Because you can say, you can be a dogmatic Christian and you can say, oh, psychedelics, it's drugs, it's bad. But you have to differentiate between being addicted to a drug or humbly taking a substance in order to maybe seek out the higher or the truth. Because not everybody is perfect. And if that's your way of going about it, then it should have been that way. Maybe it made you more open for the rest of your life, which helped you humble yourself continuously, which helped you see the world in a different view until it eventually led you to God and to you not needing to do these things anymore because you're attuned or in tune enough with your own body and your own conscience to do what you believe is right. So let's not be so overly judgmental, because yeah, there's many people who say, oh, psychedelics, boom, bad, or psychedelics, boom, good. It's not as black and white. But yeah, ultimately, what I'm saying is everything will be black or white. You always make two decisions. You're either going in this direction or you're going in that direction. And there's gonna come a point where you gotta decide. For example, will you get the chip? Will you bow down? Or will you be like, you know what, nah, I'm not doing it? Which side will you choose? Will you have the strength to choose the good side? So yeah, let me know if you like what I'm saying, if it resonates, if it makes sense. This video was more so also for people who aren't really deep into spirituality or whatever, or just my reasonings. Maybe it made somebody think, you know. I don't really know, but take care.